Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in to my super chat. Thank you so much for your support. And if you want to talk about Alec Baldwin, the upcoming stock market crash, most topics pertaining to politics, the super chat is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very, very much. Hit subscribe to this channel. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, the search warrant is pending. 3 weeks ago, Alec Baldwin was issued a search warrant. Apparently, it has no teeth. Apparently, they cannot access his phone because they don't have his phone. He still has his phone, ladies and gentlemen. He does not. The sheriffs in Santa Fe do not have his phone. Law enforcement in New York or Santa Fe, they don't have his phone. They don't have access to his emails. They don't have access to his records. They can't access anything. Eric H526, thank you so very much. Luke St. Martin, thank you. Jaded Vegas, hello. Hello, everybody. Two best moderators in all of YouTube. Thank you so very much. And so they don't have his phone, okay? They don't have his emails, they don't have his phone, they don't have his text messages, they don't have anything. And the reason is because his attorneys somehow were able to circumvent the search warrant by saying, well, look, his service provider is in New York, so you cannot access any of his data or information or emails or text messages because he lives in New York and he doesn't live in New Mexico and he's not under the jurisdiction or the authority of the laws of New Mexico or a judge's decision or a search warrant in New Mexico. So what he has to do now, what law enforcement has to do is they have to get a search warrant from New York. Once they get a search warrant in New York, then they're very likely going to litigate possibly what law enforcement can get. Now, I have numerous articles below talking about the fact that law enforcement can get anything. Okay, there is no attorney-client privilege for emails between your attorney and opposing counsel, or your attorney and other attorneys. I believe that's the case. I'll read you this. So law enforcement can actually look and find out if he's telling the truth simply by what his lawyers are telling other lawyers. So this is from the National Law Review. Emails, text messages, and discussions by an attorney with an opposing counsel or other third party are not privileged. Okay, so it is not. Okay, the attorney-client privilege does not extend to when your attorney is fighting on your behalf with opposing counsel. So that's interesting. And all they have to do is if Alec Baldwin says, well, wait a second, a lot of my messages are with my attorney right after or before the fatal accident, you can't go ahead and get the information that I had with. You can't go ahead and obtain any information, emails, messages, pictures I sent to my attorney. Okay, but his attorneys when they communicate to the assistant director, the armorer, the chief of lighting, Gloria Allred, the attorney for the script supervisor, all of that communication, I believe, the search warrant covers. So when you look at what Alec Baldwin is doing, he thinks that he's just sitting pretty, he's fine, he has $60 million. He has $60 million. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, everybody. David, hello. Hello, Margaret. Hello, everyone. He has $60 million, so in his mind, he basically says, look, I have the money to see this through. He ended somebody's life, but he feels no guilt. He told the world he feels no guilt. That is not normal. He told the world that he thought that she fainted, that she had a heart attack. These are all lies. But from his perspective, he's a Hollywood celebrity. He has tens of millions of dollars. If his net worth goes to $10 million, he doesn't care. Prison is the furthest thing from his mind. Even if, heaven forbid, if God forbid, there was intent, which I'm always saying it was an accident, I don't think there was intent to end anyone's life that morning on behalf of Alec Baldwin. But in his perspective, he has almost certainly intimidated or conveyed to the assistant director, the director, other people, that if they don't back his story, he'll sink them or throw them under the bus or blame them. Or he'll spill the beans on a whole bunch of things that perhaps he thinks will get people on board with his Alice in Wonderland narrative that he only pulled the hammer, he didn't pull the trigger of the firearm, he thought she fainted, he thought she had a heart attack. He doesn't know how a live round got on set, even though there have been reports of plinking in target practice, and camera crew walked out in protest of unsafe working conditions. So from his perspective, he's saying, you know what? From his perspective, he's saying, I have all this money, why do I need to worry? I have all this money, why do I need to worry? It doesn't make any sense for me to worry because I'm in the clear. I have millions of people who perhaps are quite ignorant pertaining to firearm safety and look at the world through the vantage point of anything that happens. An actor can literally end a woman's life accidentally. Literally, Alec Baldwin ended someone's life, and Trump's tweets, Trump's social media messages are more egregious to morally superior liberal Democrats than Alec Baldwin pointing a Colt 45, aiming, and firing the weapon less than 2 feet from the midsection of a female cinematographer. Trump's personality is more of a problem to humanity than Alec Baldwin ending someone's life. This is the mentality. So he's got, for all the people that kind of look at him and say, oh my God, including myself, the Splenda packet, Splenda Gate, are you serious? You've been relegated to chicken scratch writing that you probably wrote with a frightening happy face on a package of artificial sweetener. For everyone looking at Alec Baldwin saying, my God, there are millions of people, perhaps, I would say probably 10, 15, 20% or more of the U.S. population who looks at Alec Baldwin and says, okay, you know what? At least he's better than Trump. And so anything that happens, it's always, well, he did a good Trump imitation, so that's fine. And so from his perspective, he's sitting pretty from his perspective. He's going to try to prolong all of this. He doesn't think he's going to get criminally charged with involuntary manslaughter. And in his perspective, if he does, he'll get out of it. That's his perspective. You have to Look at things for a second from Alec Baldwin's perspective. If you are doing segments on a Splenda packet, if you're doing Instagram posts on a Splenda packet, and you're so like completely out of it, you're so completely out of it that you're in your own fantasy world, your own Alice in Wonderland, where you have tens of millions of dollars, you've ended someone's life, but you've successfully, in your mind, deceived enough people to think that it wasn't your fault, that you tried every possible way to keep things safe. You abided by industry standards, which he didn't. And at the end of the day, even if he gets charged with involuntary manslaughter, his perspective is, you know what, I have the money to see this through. The problem, and here's the problem. The problem is the following, okay? The problem is that his communication, so let's just read this. This is the National Law Review, and we'll get to others. In order for privilege to apply to the communication itself, the primary purpose of the communication must be to seek or provide legal advice. In other words, a communication is not privileged if it does not request legal advice or convey information reasonably related to a request for legal assistance. Now, if he was explaining to his attorney that he hid evidence or that he got people to hide evidence or obstruct justice in any way, that's not covered. That's not covered under the attorney-client privilege. Sparky! That's right. I'd like them to win, actually. I'd like them to win. Sparky! I'm tired. I'm tired of the Crimson Tide. No offense to anybody in Alabama, but Sparky, thank you. So, let's see right here. Let's see the score. So, search warrant for Rust actor Alec Baldwin's phone still pending 3 weeks later. Once they get his phone, because they don't have his phone, after 3 weeks, wow, national title, wow. Why was I so late? I was watching a little bit of the game, but wow, congratulations. First title since 1980. That's right. Herschel Walker is very happy today. Go Georgia Bulldogs. And it's good to the people in Georgia. Congratulations. But, I mean, you have a situation where, Sparky, thank you. You have a situation where, that's right, they just won 33-18. I just saw that right now. So congratulations, Georgia Bulldogs. Wow, great. That's great news. You have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where 3 weeks into the search warrant, they don't have his phone. They don't have his phone. And they're not going to get his phone until New York, until the New Mexico authorities demand a search warrant or ask a New York judge to obtain a search warrant. So he'll be collecting search warrants in 50 states because he'll probably move from New York to Vermont and then Vermont to New Jersey and then New Jersey to I don't even know where he'll go. But once they get his phone, in order for privilege to apply to the communication itself, the primary purpose must be to seek or provide legal advice. Thus, asking an attorney about investment advice or other non-legal issues is not privileged. If he's asked his attorney about any non-legal issue, then it's not privileged. So what he's hiding primarily is what he said to his attorneys immediately after the tragedy. That's what I'm getting at. It's only been, 15 minutes in. Betsy, hello, remember that? That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Immediately after the tragedy, the man almost certainly called his attorneys. Okay? He has tens of millions of dollars, and a person with his mindset is, I will always prevail because, he's arrogant enough and overconfident enough, and he has enough hubris to believe that he will always prevail no matter what. There's nothing that could pin him down. That's why he has the audacity to say he feels no guilt. Which is a stupid thing to say because even if something isn't your fault, it's a natural reaction to feel guilt. He did himself no favors by saying he felt no guilt. That's the point. He did himself no favors. And so his text messages, his emails, videos, pictures to his attorneys, to the assistant director, to the armorer, to the director. The communication between Alec Baldwin and the director that he injured, whose life he almost ended also. Could you imagine if that bullet, or, I think it very likely could have been 2 shots, but could you imagine if that bullet ended, God forbid, the director's life? Could you imagine he would have ended 2 lives that day? Could you imagine? What do you think he's been telling? What do you think his attorneys have been telling the attorneys of the director, or of the production company, or of the assistant director, or of the armorer? I mean, what did he say? Who did he call? Who did he speak to, and who did he message immediately after the fatal tragedy? Now, this is from a law firm. In cases involving a wrongful death, text messages can be used to show the last words or exchanges just prior to a fatal accident. Monique! The guy is clearly guilty. Monique, I agree with you. Monique, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%, Monique. Thank you so very much, Monique Smith. I agree with you on that, and involuntary manslaughter can be proved if he didn't engage in the usual ordinary caution. The New Mexico law states as long as you engaged by as long as you addressed safety protocols, then you're not going to be charged. But he didn't address any safety protocols, hardly any. He pointed a loaded weapon at somebody's midsection less than 2 feet away, without the armorer there, without checking the firearm, which is what should have happened, and hours after a protest of camera crew. The man, if he was a conservative actor, okay? If he was a conservative actor, if he was Jim Caviezel, fantastic actor. If he was Dean Cain, if he was John Voight, if he was Kanye West, the entire media, all of media, the apoplectic, hysterical, intrepid journalists who always lie by omission on every subject. And we're seeing that. We are seeing that slowly but surely. They have DNC primaried our existence. They would not stop. They would not stop focusing on every single possibility pertaining to the conservative actor. They would make me look like I don't even care about this story. Could you imagine the insidious Schadenfreude? No, there's no Schadenfreude on my part. I'm covering this in large part because media doesn't, but also because there are very few topics YouTube you can talk about on YouTube anymore. It's very Orwellian. It's very Orwellian. In 2016, I initially built my channel by talking about the DNC primary, reading from the Washington Post the DNC emails showing they cheated Bernie Sanders and lied through their teeth. You probably wouldn't be able to do that now. Even reading emails that were actually republished by The Guardian, The Washington Post. It's interesting, Julian Assange should be free, in large part because everything he's ever published was republished in The Guardian, The Washington Post, The New York Times, BuzzFeed, every other publication that just now, doesn't care now. So I mean, you can still talk about this, and it's a topic where had he not if he wasn't talking about if he wasn't doing these bizarre Ford Bronco Instagram posts, I found I found a Splenda packet. I found a Splenda packet. And it's okay. So you do know that you ended someone's life. How the media just doesn't see, and this is the thing also. It's you keep on showing these photos of how happy you are, and it's you don't realize that all of humanity is looking at you saying, okay, you just ended somebody's life. Maybe there's a disconnect between how you react to that tragic, fatal accident and how most other people would react. These are the people, by the way, who lecture you on decency. These are the people who lecture you on decency. These are the people who lecture you on Trump. These are the people who lecture you on climate change. But when Alec Baldwin has literally ended someone's life, then you know what? They're silent. It was an accident and that's it. It's well, yeah, but I mean, do you think maybe you could take a year off of social media? What would happen if you took 3 to 4 months off of Twitter or Instagram? What would happen? What would happen if he just simply stopped going on social media? If Hilaria would stop going on social media. If they wouldn't post photos every 2 seconds of how happy they are, which God bless their family, like I mean that. The family shouldn't suffer because Alec Baldwin is like possibly quite deranged. Possibly. But it's like you don't have to flaunt the fact that, yes, you're doing well while you have literally ruined the lives or, you know, done something so horrendous where a family is in mourning and in pain. And they would always do that with Trump. Oh, Trump, he has no decency. They would always do that. So it's like this disconnect between reality and morally superior liberal sensibilities. The sensibilities of how, look, a prime example is Bette Midler. A prime example is Bette Midler. Bette Midler insults an entire state. She insults an entire state. And it's like, just gets away with it. Just completely gets away with it. But they're going to eventually get um his text messages, they're going to get his text messages, his emails, his pictures, his videos. And they're going to get everything. It's just a matter of time. Once they get everything, they'll find out. I think that the most important, um, I think the two most important moments were the morning of the tragedy and immediately after the tragedy. I think those are the two most important moments of everything. Right after the tragedy, who did he call? Who did he speak to? Joe Nerf Herder. Remember Alec Baldwin? Alec played a smart person on TV once, so you should believe it. Joe, thank you. Exactly. That's the way. Um, that's the way. But David, it's interesting. I know people like that also, and it's like, well, what laws did he break? And if Trump indeed broke laws, why isn't he indicted? Maybe because he didn't break the laws. That's the point. That's the point I always make. Joe, exactly. People just, you know what? It's. I can't blame. I honestly can't blame people for not being able to believe. Like for a long time, I couldn't believe that OJ would have done what he almost certainly did. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. It's very difficult for people to believe. Um, it's very difficult for people to believe that a celebrity that they are a fan of did something illegal or criminal. Well, maybe not illegal. Maybe they could believe that, but did something that would completely ruin their status in the mind of the fan. Like, I don't think people realize the how much of a hypocrite they are when they defend Alec Baldwin, but wouldn't have defended Jim Caviezel or Dean Cain or you know Kanye West or any conservative or Trump supporting actor. Like you're a gigantic hypocrite Because the only reason, like the driving factor, the primary motivating factor when pontificating about politics or anything in this day and age is this delineation between anything that helps Trump or anything that is linked to Trump and anything that is linked to anyone who opposes Trump. That's what morality has become. And without a free and open debate, see, and I'm going to get into a tangent, but I have to speak in a long-winded manner. Snumglass Bench, love you, homie. Keep them coming. Wish me luck, bro. I'm waiting on a very important verdict on a bid offer I made. Watching the show makes the time fly. Yes! God bless you. Best of luck. I hope everything works out beautifully for you, and I appreciate your support. And everybody send good vibes. Everybody send good vibrations to Snumglass Bench. And we wish you a very positive outcome on the bid, and only happiness and success. Thank you, Snubglass Bench. Thank you. And now I'm going into Alec Baldwin's mind, and we're entering Alice in Wonderland. I tried to enter Alice in Wonderland for certain reasons pertaining to the Terminator robots, and it went over people's heads. Do you understand? No. It went over people's heads. We'll see. So this is because the Terminator robots and the Orwellian Terminator robots are everywhere. So we must take a trip into Alec Baldwin's brain and then make a left turn into the highway towards Bette Midler's moral sensibilities and notions of good and evil. And now we're entering the utopia, the morally superior liberal utopia, where they told you that you had to, if you just made the banana flambe the way we told you to make it and enjoyed it with a tall glass of Yoo-hoo, and if you did all of this, and if you got on a unicycle, and if you went across a tightrope over the Grand Canyon, eating the banana flambe, while at the same time juggling flaming bowling pins with one arm, and singing the Latvian national anthem, if you just did this, then everything would be fine. Everything would be fine. Everything would be fine. Then before that, they said it was a fair and neutral primary. Some people might not know what I'm doing, but that's fine. But what happens is they keep on demanding that you continually ride the unicycle on the tightrope over the Grand Canyon, and the desired outcome never happens, never takes place. Then we're finding out that, you could possibly fall. Then we're finding out, JG! JG, hello! Then we're finding out that, you know what? Sometimes people are hesitant to jump on a tightrope on a unicycle across the Grand Canyon. Sometimes people are reluctant. People are actually reluctant to do these things. And so now we can't talk about why people are reluctant. And yet still the same outcome takes place. And what happens is the more they fail, the more apoplectic they become. The more they're proven wrong, the more draconian and the more apoplectic and the more hysterical and the more malicious and the more vindictive they become. Because they've invested so much into telling you to walk a tightrope or to, get on that unicycle and devour that banana flambe while juggling flaming bowling pins with the other hand, that they can't turn back now. They have to continue. And if you don't abide, if you don't take the same measures and expend the same energy that they've spent without any meaningful rewards, and so if you dare say, I would rather not get on that unicycle. I would rather not, even if the tightrope is 2 feet. I'd rather not get on the unicycle. You're a heretic. You've committed blasphemy because you haven't suffered in the same manner they did. And so misery loves company. And these are the smartest people in the room. So anyway, that's just we're venturing off into the mind of liberal madness. And you have to ask yourself, hello, Lisa, hello. Robin, hello. You have to ask yourself, in our society, how much energy has the average Democrat spent opposing Trump at all costs, even if it meant they might fall off the tightrope and fall 10 feet down? How much energy? So the risk-reward benefit, the cost-benefit analysis is always, I would rather be wrong with everyone who approves of me than be right and lose all my friends. Which, if you've lost friends, at some point they cease to truly be your friend. Because if you're the type of person to let politics invade your friendship or family, you're the one who has major character flaws. Because if you say Trump is a criminal, you gotta prove it. And if they say, well, you said Clinton committed, but you can't have top secret intelligence outside private servers. However, you can circumvent legal repercussions with the FBI director saying there was no intent. Is there anyone at the FBI or the DOJ who's going to go to bat for Trump on anything? No. They say that William Barr did. It's like, well, William Barr actually didn't say anything that Mueller didn't say. The problem is they were so mortified and embarrassed. They were so mortified and embarrassed with Trump Russia that when Mueller said, oh, what page? Is that page 67? And he knew nothing about what Trump was alleged to have done, and he didn't even recommend indictments to the DOJ, which is what he should have done. Okay, they couldn't indict Trump because it all led back to they couldn't indict Trump because it would have led back to Peter Strzok and McCabe and Clapper and Brennan. So they couldn't indict Trump. But the point is, you look at society and you look at like so how can anyone defend Alec Baldwin? Or how can anyone look at mashed potato brains and say this is he's a great president? How can you look at this man, mashed potato brains, and his completely inept administration, or the vice president, and say, oh, they're doing a good job, or it's better than Trump? Literally, more people lost their lives from you know what. And according to one poll, more people disapprove of mashed potato brains handling of you know what. So we have inflation at a 32-year high. It is closer to 15% than 7% or 6 to 7%. Gas prices, rent, food costs, meat. You don't eat no meat? What movie? Have all gone up. You don't eat no meat? Thank you, J-Spot51. Now, well, censorship is real. Want to name the cinematographer in a super chat. Yep. J-Spot51, thank you. PH Joy, thank you so very much. And it's like you have two standards of not only justice but of reporting. Search warrant for Rust actor Alec Baldwin's phone still pending 3 weeks later. The man is not giving up his phone. And could you imagine if Donald Trump Jr. wasn't giving up his phone and he found a packet of Sweet and Low, okay? Or he found a packet of Splenda? Could you imagine if Donald Trump Jr. was talking about the Splenda packet? I mean, it would be nonstop speculation. So authorities are still trying to get a search warrant issued still trying to obtain the contents of his phone from a search warrant issued in December for Rust actor Alec Baldwin's phone. Okay, it was issued on December 17th by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department. In a video posted to Instagram, Baldwin said the best way to honor the demise of the cinematographer is to find out the truth. This is the Ford Bronco moments. Like, the audacity. The man has lied through his teeth. He said he thought she fainted, had a heart attack, had high blood pressure, the cholesterol, all of this stuff. I'm obviously being facetious about the last two statements, but he said he thought that this is the same type of thing when George Stephanopoulos goes to Jim Jordan and says, do you think it's appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate that Trump asked China to investigate Biden? Within the context, Mr. Stephanopoulos, of the past 5 years, yes. That's what he should have said, but Jim Jordan didn't say that for some reason. I mean, he did explain, hey, the Steele dossier, but then of course it's in with George Stephanopoulos with the morally superior liberal mindset. It's, oh, that's whataboutism. They don't see the correlation. They don't understand. They think that they're ordained by God to treat others in a manner they would never accept. So Jim Jordan should have simply said the following. Yes, within the context of the past 6 years, where Trump was set up and framed, then yes, it was appropriate. Because, A, it wasn't some kind of, they always do this. Hillary Clinton with Rachel Maddow said that China, if you're listening, something along the lines of, it would be good to get Trump's taxes. She asked China to get Trump's tax returns, okay? Then she and the DNC purchased the Steele dossier. Then you had political operatives who were aligned to the Democratic Party. Now, George Stephanopoulos would say there's no evidence that these people There's a lot of evidence. They investigated an incoming president based on an absurd, literally fabricated accusation that he was installed by the Kremlin or that there was compromise on him. You could say that about anyone's policies, anyone whose policies disagree with you. Well, or disagree with your own. Oh, that person. Why is that person tough on NATO? Oh, well, it must be because he was being paid by the Kremlin. Meanwhile, you have Democrats with romantic relationships, the honeypot, which is, age old, like probably in the Bible. Meanwhile, you have Democrats who have romantic relationships with foreign operatives. Okay? Foreign operatives. And it's like they get over that. It's like there's no discussion. But Trump is the big problem. And all they did was speculate about him in the hotel room and all that. Sparky! Sparky, thank you. JG. How can you have a romantic relationship? This is what I don't get. Okay? If I was in Congress, do you think I would be at like the bar of like a TGI Fridays and somebody comes up to me, even like nobody knows who I am, thank God. It's fantastic not to have anyone know who you are. But do you think if I say, hey, you're H.A. Goodman, you have the stock market crash channel, and you are almost at 200,000 subs. Immediately, I would say, compromise. Take the compromise and just leave. Thank you. I wouldn't even doubt. I wouldn't even. At what point, if you're a congressman, do you think that this beautiful operative really likes you? Maybe, just maybe, they're trying to get information. Oh, maybe, just maybe, they're just trying to get information. Exactly, Ted. James, thank you. Weaponized hypocrisy, yes. Yes. So it's like it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. You get, I mean, like, then you have the operative that was with Dianne Feinstein for 10 years. Then you have I mean, it's just unbelievable. Insider trading, you trade stocks right after a classified briefing, but you're Richard Burr, so you like took it to Trump. And then there's always like Republican inquiry finds no wrongdoing of Biden. Oh, really? You mean the never Trump Republicans didn't find any wrongdoing? When did they read any of the emails obtained by the New York Post? Where are Trump's emails? Where are the emails saying that Trump is a Russian Oh, that's right. You had to fabricate those, which was a dossier. It wasn't even an email. It was an official sounding like napkin you'd find at a bar. Remember before cell phones? If you wanted to exchange numbers, oh, you know what? Let me get your number. Okay, it's just on a cocktail napkin. It was a dossier. No, it wasn't, they have a stationery store. They call me memo, dossier. It's all nonsense. It's all public relations, but they heat it up. Trump, the walls are closing in. JG, the walls are closing in. The walls never closed in. They were actually the ones who were like hallucinating. The walls always seemed like they were closing in because they were the ones hallucinating. And it's like people like Alec Baldwin and the morally superior liberal Democrats, the morally superior liberal Democrats, it's always we have existential issue. Climate change is an existential issue. Okay. Do you want to pass the Green New Deal legislation written by AOC? That was to motivate people. Oh, so you don't want to you're embarrassed of the Green New Deal. It's an existential issue. We're going to address it in incremental changes that are linked to our liberal sensibilities. Not too far to the left. That was just to get young people on board. Oh, so it's all about public relations. You don't think it's an existential issue. You're buying beachfront property. Bill Nye says it's an existential issue, so it is. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Everyone must drive an electric car. Okay. What about the mining of cobalt? Here, definitely whataboutism for this, which is what you should always do with any backwards or like apoplectic element of liberal ideology, which most of it is completely apoplectic and devoid of any rational, reasonable discussion. If it's an existential issue and you have to decarbonize and you have to just drive electric cars, then what do you do for all the precious metals, nickel, lithium, cobalt? Where are you going to get these? In the Congo, other places in the world where indigenous people suffer? Where indigenous people have to risk their lives because your electric car vehicle battery won't work? And so it's just always like, it's always the same thing. Electric car vehicle batteries, the batteries. I wrote a Federalist article on that, my first one. Let's go with it. Let's see. Oh, Lord. I wrote a. Is this mic on? I think it is. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is the mic working, ladies and gentlemen? What is that like little thing? Okay, okay. So let's just see really quickly. Cobalt. A power struggle over cobalt rattles the clean energy revolution. American automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Tesla buy cobalt battery components from suppliers that depend in part on Chinese-owned mines in Congo. A Tesla long-range vehicle requires about 10 pounds of cobalt, more than 400 times the amount in a cell phone. Okay, it is not green. Electric car vehicles are not green. Not green. And all the indigenous people that AOC says that she cares about, these people risk a great deal of their health, a lot of, already tensions over minerals and metals are rattling the electric car vehicle market. So, I mean, let's see here. This is a New York Times article. That's just one. For more than a decade, the vast expanse of untouched land was controlled by an American company. Now a Chinese mining conglomerate has bought it and is racing to retrieve its buried treasure, millions of tons of cobalt. This is in Congo. Okay. The wooden stretch of southeast Democratic Congo, called Kisanfu, holds one of the largest and purest untapped reserves of cobalt in the world. The demand is set to, we'll just say, skyrocket because it is used in electric car batteries, helping them run longer without a charge. This is not green. This is another example of morally superior liberal Democrats tanking the entire planet. It would actually be better for humanity not to push this, because you're not like, it would be better for the people in Congo and other countries if we had a more methodical, rational approach than the hysterical and apoplectic paranoia that fuels every liberal policy. You have indigenous people who are going to suffer because of liberal sensibilities. So now there's a rush on cobalt. I'm not even getting to lithium and nickel. The Times Dispatch reports across 3 continents drawn into the competition for cobalt, a relatively obscure raw metal that, along with lithium, nickel, and graphite, has gained exceptional value in a world trying to set fossil fuels aside. I would rather have fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are much better for humanity than trying to plunder the precious metals of countries around the world. And guess who owns the mines? Not us. Well, the countries should own the mines, or at least businesses within those countries, I should say. But see, again, it's like they're completely clueless. I mean, there's like so many articles. There's so many articles on this. And the cobalt mines are radioactive. So you have indigenous people. Who have to risk mining in these radioactive cobalt mines because the wonderful Hollywood Democrat must have, or whatever, the socially conscious citizen of the world must decarbonize. Because if we don't, it's a big problem. So what have they done? They have created this world where instead of fossil fuels, which are bad for the planet, apparently what's okay is mining metals and taking these resources from, ensuring that indigenous people mine metals so morally superior liberals can feel good about themselves. And for example, in the Congo, there's tremendous poverty, and a lot of the rush for these metals also, just like diamonds, they foster internal conflict, military conflicts, and strife. But you know what? As long as Bill Nye and others say that it'll save the planet, this is about the sensibilities of people. It's not about morality. This has nothing to do with moral. It would be immoral. By the way, there's somebody trying to impersonate me on Gmail, just to let you know. I did a segment on that on the stock market crash channel today. And stocks were tanking like 500 points. NASDAQ was down hundreds of points. And they came back up, but it's just a matter of time before you're going to see 4,000 point drops in a 2-week span. There's going to be a devastating stock market crash. Because this year they're going to spike up interest rates and quantitative easing is ending. The reason there are profits, record profits, is because you've pumped so much free money that people didn't feel the full, inconvenience, let's say, of inflation. Or they didn't experience the full brunt of inflation because of all the money that was pumped into the economy. JG, I agree with you. JG, great minds think alike. Your mind is greater than my own, but I'll tell you, great minds think alike. If you're about to retire, in my humble view, I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But I don't think that I don't think that I don't think that anyone should be in the stock market if they need liquidity and cash and they need the money to survive and they're about to retire. If you need your nest egg, simply being in the market right now will be, not something that is wise. I would get out of the market if I was about to retire immediately. What are the dangers of the cobalt mining industry in the Democratic Republic of Congo? Is cobalt mining toxic? Particles emitted during cobalt mining consist of radioactive emissions, cancer-causing particles, and particles which may cause vision problems, heart problems, and thyroid damage. But as long as AOC feels good about climate change, it's all good. As long as, and then what they'll do is the typical morally superior liberal comeback. Well, the same thing happens in the fossil fuel industry. Wrong. Maybe maybe you could say similar things, but not in terms of the severity. Yes, fossil fuels, yes, they have their own issues, but you're not getting indigenous people, in an oil rig. You're not getting indigenous people to go into mines run by a communist country where they don't really care. You think there are labor standards? It's like when everyone has their iPhone and they're texting their friends about how horrible Trump is. Like, you know what? A lot of people suffered to make that iPhone. So maybe you're not as morally superior as you think. But the mines are radioactive. The New Yorker says mildly radioactive. Mildly radioactive. Mildly radioactive. Diane, hello. People in Australia, hello. So, I mean, Glencore's radioactive shock for the cobalt market. I mean, do you think that it is so simple to completely obliterate any of the arguments made? You are making the indigenous people that you claim to care about go into radioactive mines simply so you can feel good about yourself that you've decarbonized from fossil fuels. You've done nothing to help anyone. You've done nothing to help anyone. And you probably, like, if tomorrow, if within the next 5 to 10 years, there's a mad rush for cobalt, you're going to then fuel major military confrontations within that country, major wars for these precious resources. And they're only precious because everyone wants to, or a lot of people, I should say, want to go from, gas to electric, which, by the way, 60% of electric power plants are run by fossil fuels. And then the remaining 40%, 20% is nuclear power. So 80% is fossil fuels and nuclear power, which environmentalists don't want, or climate change advocates don't want. And only around 15 to 20% is renewables. And then the renewables themselves rely in partially on fossil fuels to run. So, I mean, it's like, have you ever seen a political ideology that is so good at achieving the opposite of what they're so apoplectic about? The opposite. Everything, it's always opposite day. Remember that term, opposite day? It's always opposite day. Like everything that they claim to be, existential, they'll prolong the dilemma. They'll prolong they talked about wealth inequality. They care so much. Like, you are taxing the poor with inflation that you caused because you pushed to end economic growth. Or no, sorry, you pushed to end economic activity. You pushed to end all economic activity. And by the way, that's my first article in the Federalist about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. So this is interesting. Terrible. So Katanga's cobalt, however, has turned out to be radioactive. Glencore's operating subsidiary, Katanga Mining, has found uranium with low levels of radioactivity in its cobalt hydroxide product. Wow. Not enough to pose a safety scare. Okay. All right. Oh, this is a good article in Forbes. Blood batteries, the cobalt in the Congo. That's a really good article. I'm gonna read that by James Conca. Very good article. So, I mean, in 2016, Amnesty International issued a blistering report naming more than 2 dozen electronics and automotive companies that had failed to ensure their cobalt supplies didn't include child labor at these types of mines. Wow. Basically sweatshops, but with radioactive mines. Wow. Absolutely terrible. So, I mean, you look at this and it's like, I mean, this is just one example of many. Flux capacitor, yes. Don't you miss the days, ladies and gentlemen, where like life was normal? Don't you miss normality? I feel sorry for people who don't know what life was like in the 90s. Even the early 2000s was still normal. Even 2010 was still normal. Then you slowly had the social media. That when social media came on the scene, normality just ceased to exist. Social media has turned the internet into a cauldron of emotion. It used to be like an arena where ideas and information and you know it wouldn't be about emotion. It wasn't about emotion. Monique Smith again, major medical. Wow. Again, major medical findings changed laws in the U.S. against bottling beer in cobalt bottles. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. Monique Smith, thank you. Monique Smith, thank you so very, very much. Thank you so very much, Monique. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. To my super chat, thank you so very much. I mean, I start off with Alec Baldwin. I'll just, go off into other tangents. It's been somewhat slow. Thank you, Monique. Thank you so very much. It's been a bit slow in terms of the news. It's like somewhat slow. Mitt Romney is doing as usual. Like, how this man is a Republican senator, I don't know, but. Oh, JG. Howard Stern is. I've never seen a fall from. Maybe he was once great, but I've never seen someone who abandoned. Howard Stern abandoned everything that made him interesting, good, unique. Like, he was the original. Like, he went Howard Stern, Mel Brooks, Don Rickles, Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay. You can just go on. Mort Saul. Um, oh no. Lenny Bruce. Anyone who was shocking prior to like 3 years ago would have been canceled immediately in this day and age. Immediately. Howard Stern would never have been able, if he lived in this era, to gain a huge following. I mean, if you have Netflix, like taking Dave Chappelle's special off their platform, you basically crossed the Rubicon of absolute madness. It's absolute madness. Like, you can't, like, so much of comedy is about Netflix memo encourages recruiters to avoid talking about Dave Chappelle. What? I mean, you have Patton Oswalt apologizing about being what is this cult? Most people absolutely love Dave Chappelle. They absolutely love Dave Chappelle. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. So Netflix removes Chappelle's show. It's like, what? Oh, is there David? David. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Netflix removes. That's based. That was after he. Why HBO? Oh, is that Dave Chappelle's request? Okay. The fact that he's controversial at all says something very. It proves that we've We've taken comedy and politicized comedy. You're supposed to be able to laugh at things, and you're supposed to be able to um, speak your mind without people being horrified and turning it into this moral crusade. Like the televangelists of the 80s, who people mock in this generation, those televangelists morphed into young, morally superior. I wouldn't even say young. Probably 40, 30, 40s. I mean, not very young. But I saw Chris Rock in college, and he was hilarious. I doubt you see these comedians go to college shows now, and like the audience is like, "Oh my god," yelling back at the comedians. Like, what? When did judgment and condemnation become such an important part of life? That was never condemnation, judgment, pontificating. That was never a part of growing up. It was never really a part of life in general. If you didn't like something, you just didn't watch it. And I remember Two Live Crew, great rap group, fantastic. We need like another Two Live Crew, but they wouldn't be able to, or maybe they might. But in this day and age, I remember they had the album Banned in the USA, and so, but it was like a huge thing. Now it's like, it's just this bizarre warped world. It happens so quickly too. It's like, well, freedom autopsy report. What about Trotsky? No, I haven't. I haven't. Um, freedom autopsy report. Thank you. I haven't. Lost his life in Mexico. I remember, from what I remember. The life was taken, I should say. Freedom autopsy report. Karen Marxism has almost destroyed exactly. I think freedom autopsy report. Thank you so very much. I think it's a battle. I would say it's a battle for if quote unquote Democratic Party liberal ideology doesn't prevent or censor or ban or stifle or suppress emotion or ideas, because their whole thing is not only about the information or the ideas, it's about the emotion. They utilize this apoplectic, hysterical, irrational, like laser beam of emotion whenever they're trying to prove a point that really doesn't make sense if you just argued and had a civil debate with two rational people. So if somebody says, okay, climate change is an existential threat, we have to get to electric car vehicles. Okay, well then what about the precious metals that could fuel wars and conflict and strife and health issues in the Congo? With cobalt, for example, then there's nickel and lithium and graphite and all of that. Then you're going to have a global competition for all of these metals, and indigenous people are going to suffer. What do you say about that? It's the same thing with fossil fuels. They wouldn't be able to have like a rational discussion because everything is an existential issue. If everything is if everything is an existential issue, you can never actually have a rational discussion. You can't have a rational discussion if they have to. This is why they're so focused on absurd things like information that could cause harm. We'll just keep it at that. Or information that could cause you to be reluctant. We'll just keep it at that. There's no such thing as information that could harm anyone, unless you could prove that the information harmed somebody in a court of law. If you can't prove in a court of law that someone's words caused harm without a shadow of a doubt, then you need to just keep quiet and stop spreading nonsense. But that's not the way they work. They're so obsessed with information that could refute their poorly, constructed arguments. And what they do is they say, well, this information is going to make you reluctant. People are reluctant to fall in love. This is a basic philosophy of life, basic tenets of life. These emotions are normal emotions. If you are given information that makes you, because of your situation, reluctant to do something, that's because you've assessed the cost-benefit analysis. You might be a very different person from somebody who is screaming into a megaphone saying that it works for them, so therefore you should do it. And if the numbers are always trending towards one reality, when they started as the basis of somebody's apoplectic, hysterical vantage point, and then, oh, well, that vantage point changed, and oh, that viewpoint changed, and oh, that we found out a little bit more about this or that. It's like, well, you demand blind obedience and allegiance. Everything that you talk about is you remove, like, there are like 5 or 6 questions you can ask pertaining to any topic, even the sacrilegious, even the religion that they've created around certain topics. Simple questions to disprove, and you can't even discuss that. That's why we're in a tailspin in our country, because discussion is banned. Like, you can't actually come to any truthful, meaningful reality, because that would actually be different from whatever prevailing mainstream view. Freedom Autopsy Report. H.A. Trotsky was a critic of Stalinism, and his book, The Revolution Betrayed, applies to today's Democratic Party. Freedom Autopsy Report. I'm going to look that up, and I'm sure you're right on that. And I appreciate that. The one thing, like, the one direct link between communism and today's Democratic Party is both cease to exist with open debate and dialogue. You have to have state-run media in both, and you essentially have state-influenced media, okay? We have a state-influenced media, maybe not run, but it's influenced. So, AG, you're right. Freedom Autopsy Report, thank you so very much. They don't realize that this is like the left or liberal Democrats or the people who run social media companies. They don't realize this is like Twitter, for example, is going to be a meaningless waste of time 10 years from now. Every moment that people spend on Twitter, they will never get back. Do you think the last breath of most Twitter users will be, gosh, I wish I spent more time telling that unknown profile on Twitter, telling him off? That will never happen. That will never happen. Twitter will, look, it's become a platform for people to spread negativity or to judge and condemn or pontificate. There are certain little pockets where, people, speak the truth. And of course, what happens is when people engage in blasphemy in our society, they will be looked upon years from now as heroes. The heretics of our generation will be looked at as heroes. They're so quick to be patting themselves on the back. The wonderful Hollywood liberal Democrats, the morally superior among us, are so into this pseudo morality. They don't realize that simply abiding by groupthink doesn't make you moral. Simply opposing Trump doesn't make you moral. If anything, if that's your only if that's how you see the world, that's a very immoral way of seeing the world. It'll encourage you to do immoral things. And we can see from everybody from Michael Avenatti to the Cuomo brothers to Alec Baldwin, all of these people. But years from now, the best thing that anybody could say is, "Oh, I was banned off of Twitter." Well, that's going to be a source of it's a source of pride now, pretty much. But it's going to be a source of pride in the future. It won't be, "Oh, I was retweeted by 1 million people for condemning Trump." That is not going to be anything to be proud of. Freedom! Autopsy report. Thank you so very much to my super chat. I can't do this without you. I appreciate your support. H.E. Read Trotsky's My Attempt at an Autobiography. First, it's hilarious. Trotsky was a writer first and first-rate creative genius, however evil. I'm going to look at that. Thank you, Freedom Autopsy Report. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I'm not really I understand who he is and his role. He had a falling out with Stalin. I understand, Stalin. I understand. I have a cursory knowledge of who he is, but I appreciate that. Freedom Autopsy Report. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. When the stock market crash happens, because you're seeing now, you're seeing a record number of people leave their jobs, and every policy from Biden's administration, almost every one, is not conducive to economic growth. None of the bill that Manchin torpedoed, everything from Build Back Better to everything he's doing pertaining to you-know-what, none of it is geared towards economic growth. It's all, okay, we have this fleeting momentary power because we've wrestled control away from Trump, the Orange Menace, so we're going to try to just fit in everything we've ever wanted. Or, try to just abide by our sensibilities. The sensibilities are what drives the policies of mashed potato brains, not reality. Life is worse. Crime is up. Inflation is up. We have global supply chain shortages, but that was caused by the same people who pushed to end economic activity, Biden's base. No amount of draconian policies is enough. No amount. It will never end. You know what will never end because it's replaced religion. It is given them a sense of importance. It's like part of their spirit. And they pretend to care about 30 to 40% of the population. They don't care. They have so much angst and frustration that everything they've done has resulted in the opposite of what they wanted. So misery loves company, and they're just going to try their best to get everyone on the Titanic. And people aren't, you know what? People still have critical thinking skills. So they're like, you know what? I might hold off. I might not get on the Titanic. Maybe I don't want to get on the Titanic. Luke St. Martin, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Luke St. Martin, thank you so very much. Sparky! Sparky, thank you. Modern educated people don't understand nuance. They only understand, is it good or is it bad? Exactly. They can't think for themselves. Here's the thing, Sparky. I think the level of education, I think that people confuse uh, the prevailing mentality for a correct viewpoint. Now we're finding out that numbers that people utilized to base decision making were manipulated and flawed. We'll leave it at that. The numbers are trending towards a different reality, and they always are. And the goalposts are always being moved. None of the numbers that were cited are entirely accurate, which means the hysteria and the apoplectic accusations or policy decisions and all draconian policies, none of them worked. None of them worked because the information was skewed, manipulated, and never completely or entirely accurate. But again, I mean, the people who speak out, it will be a source of pride years from now to say, okay, well, I had a huge following on Twitter, but I was banned because of blasphemy. You can look through, I mean, Socrates took his own life. You can look all throughout these, Sparky, thank you. Jeanette Cole, thank you so very much. I hope all is well. Thank you for watching in the UK. Thank you. I think that, Jeanette, and to my UK, to my British and Australian viewers, I think you live in, especially in Australia, you live in a world that is the next evolution of the United States in certain respects if we only had the Democratic Party. if we kind of have one party rule when it comes to although there are conservatives in the UK that are pretty awesome. So Jeanette Cole, thank you so very much. Not that I'm conservative on every issue, but I'm probably liberal on or progressive on or to the left on a bunch of issues. Immigration being one of them, generally, not on every topic. But Jeanette, thank you so very much. Oh, I agree with you, JG. You know what? Jeanette, I was doing a Boris Johnson. I was doing a Boris Johnson imitation. Boris Johnson. I can't. You know what? I would have to listen to him. Hold on one second. I would have to listen to Boris Johnson. Okay. I was doing a Boris Johnson imitation. I don't know if I can do it. Boris. I can't. Oh, God. Hold on one second. Let's listen to this man. His Christmas speech was fantastic. Hold on one second. Boris Johnson Christmas speech. That was a great one. That was really depressing.
These are the customers you've been looking for. And
this.
when you market on LinkedIn...
Oh, no. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, let's just do, like, his... Okay, because I know if I do the Christmas speech, it's a big problem. So we'll do maybe on Brexit. Okay. Okay, hold on.
Statement. The Prime Minister.
All right, House of Commons, yeah. Love me some House of Commons, yeah. Let's see if I can listen to this. Okay, hold on a second. All right, hold on a second.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by echoing what you've just said. My gratitude to all members.
Okay, oh, I think I know what I did. Oh, Lord. Okay, hold on. I'm almost there. Lord. Okay, almost there. Ah, okay. Okay, almost there.
Saturday, for the first time in 37 years.
For the first time in 37 years.
And indeed to all members of our House of Commons staff who have worked to make this sitting possible. And I know it's meant people giving up their Saturdays, breaking into their weekends at a time when families want to be together. And of course,
he had this Christmas speech. Oh, God.
It means missing at least the end of England's World Cup quarter-final. I apologise to the House for that, and I wish I...
This Christmas was not as bad as the last one, marginally better than the one before, and we all still have to suffer. I can't do it anymore. I can't speak. I have to do it better. I have to do it better. I'm sorry. I apologize. Jeanette, I apologize. I won't tarnish the good name of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson. I apologize. Anyway, he had this hilarious Christmas speech. It was so depressing. It was like so depressing because they never like. And here's the problem too: you have both sides of the political divide so petrified. This Christmas was better marginally than last Christmas, but still not as good as Christmas as usually. And maybe, possibly next Christmas will allow you to have a tiny bit more happiness. Maybe, just maybe. I'm Boris Johnson. Merry Christmas. And just remember that this year, you'll be marginally more happy than you were the previous year. But not happy enough to remember the good times before humanity descended into madness. That's kind of what he was. It was more eloquent than the mashed potato brains who falls asleep. It's AG. It's just a flesh wound. Come on, it's just a flesh wound. Monty Python wouldn't be perimeter. Thank you. Monty Python wouldn't be allowed today. Actually, I think they try to cancel Monty Python. I think they try to cancel them. Oh, what's his name? Cleese. I think they try to cancel him. They try to cancel him. What's happening with J.K. Rowling? Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And she was one of the people. I can't do it now. she was one of the people pushing the, oh my God, Trump's so bad, Trump's so, and oh my God, Benny Hill. He's another. I love Benny Hill. He's another person. Benny Hill would be canceled in 2 seconds. Benny Hill was like the best. Oh my God, but he would be like, oh my God, did you see what he was doing? This is, oh my God, he was laughing and smirking and pinching and oh my God, did you see what the actress was wearing? This is part of the patriarchy and this is part of this. It's like, well, it was funny. Do you laugh ever? Do you laugh ever? Comedy. Eric, was it a South Park episode? Eric H526. Was it a South Park episode where comedy now has been relegated to just, I walked into a store and the cashier gave me wrong change. Oh, like the most benign observational comedy that didn't, And then a people for the prevention of wrong change. Oh my God. It's like one political side wants to make everyone afraid of their own shadow simply for political gain. Sparky! Intellectuals fall into intellectual traps. They lack the healthy cynicism of regular people. Exactly. Ah, yeah. Yep. JG. Sparky, you're 100% right. But their whole thing also is, well, everyone agrees with it, so therefore it must be right. It's like, no, there are so many times the tulip craze in Holland in the 1600s. People lost their life savings amassing tulip bulbs. I mean, it's Sparky, you're right. You're right. He-Man would be everything. Look, you know what it is? These are neuroses. This is not. There's no. They have taken intellectual debate, dialogue, discourse, discussion. They've wrapped it. They have enveloped normal discussion, laughter, comedy, like political disagreements. They've enveloped all of these topics into a cloak of hysterical, apoplectic the hysterical, apoplectic sensibilities of one political side. One political side. It's the hysterical, apoplectic sensibilities of one political side. And it's like we won't move on as a society until the First Amendment is protected again. You can't. You have to be able. And unfortunately, I think it's gonna. This is the thing. Like a devastating stock market crash will be, horrible. And I'm not going to say there's any good that comes from it. I'm not going to say it'll be a good thing because it'll be a terrible thing. Perhaps, however, the lessons learned will be that if you stifle debate and discussion and allow one political ideology to control the future, our fate as a society, then you're going to tank. Because I've been saying for months now, actually for years, but when we have another financial collapse because of a devastating, too big to fail stock market crash, which is what's going to take place, when we have that, it will be directly because we tanked the economy in 2020. And media and Democrats and bureaucrats did so in large part to kick Trump out. I'm not saying that was the only reason. Ignorance played a part in it also. Blind allegiance to authority, which is also a funny thing. I mean, did you grow... When was there a time period where youth worshipped authority? This is very bizarre. I would say I always respected, but I never revered. I never worshipped, people who were experts or authority, individuals who had authority, or the principal or teachers, or I respected them. I admired them, but I never revered anyone. I certainly didn't revere politicians or government agencies. That never happened. That never happened growing up. I don't even know when there was a time period where young people would revere these institutions. When on earth was there a time period where people in their 20s revered intelligence agencies? When on earth did that happen? You probably have more people, maybe not in the 20s, but even in their 30s. You have so many people now in society. I mean, you look at, I don't want to bring up other countries, but you look at the draconian policies in other countries, and nothing works. And it's always, well, the authorities have said this. It's like, well, why don't you... Do you think... I didn't want to get into it. When you have broken down the will, when you have broken down the humanity of people to where you hear people say, I didn't see my parents for X amount of time because this bureaucrat said I couldn't. You have lost your you have allowed people with ulterior motives to remove your humanity. And it's the road to you nowhere is paved with good intentions. I don't care if God himself said you can't see your loved one. I'd be like, well, God, I love you, but nah. It's like when you allow people. That's right. Oh, I know, JG. You know what's interesting? You have everyone from Howard Stern to, people who are, punk rock legends, or, like Rage Against the Machine, for example. These people are like millionaires, or they started off, I won't do what you tell me, and then they end up, you better do what we tell you. It's like, what happened? What? The only rebel now is like the 50 or 60-year-old doctor who gets, who commits blasphemy or heresy. That's the only rebel now. It's certainly not like there's no counterculture. There's no like, maybe there's an underground scene. I'm sure there are many underground scenes, but it's not like, I don't know. It's very bizarre. It's all very bizarre. I agree with you, Mary. I agree with you. And the interesting thing is, like, you keep on like, it's like this. Yes, I agree with you, JG. I think hopefully when Republicans take over the House, I actually think there's going to be a change. Joe Rogan himself is making a huge contribution. A huge contribution. Their channels also, like Young Ripa 59, huge contribution. He's awesome. I think that there are people like, you look at Joe Rogan and you look at a lot of content creators. Young Ripa 59, I was listening to him on YouTube. And he's awesome. And the people are like, they're asking simple questions that can't be answered by, the televangelists of our generation. Simple questions. The simplest questions completely undermine the prevailing groupthink. If you ask simple, basic questions and the morally superior among us can't answer them without yelling, there's a huge problem. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much, everybody here, to my super chat. I cannot thank you enough. Sparky, Jeanette, everybody, Freedom Autopsy Report, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so very much, Monique, J-Spot, Sparky, everybody here, Snumglaz, Joe, Monique, thank you so much, everybody. And I will be back tomorrow, be here tomorrow in the evening. I'll have a live stream. I might also have a live stream in the early afternoon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. JG, thank you so much. David, thank you. Eric, H526, Luke St. Martin, thank you so very, very much, everyone. I will probably have a segment. I'll probably have an upload. Well, I might have an upload right after this one on the stock market, or I might just wait until tomorrow. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great evening. God bless. Eric and Luke, thank you so